Hello and welcome to another episode of Eat Smoke Drink. Today we have Battle of the Springbanks. Yes, Battle of the Springbanks. We have the Longrow 18 and the Springbank 18, same year releases, 2018. So this is the 2018 release, and this is the second release of 2018, which is the month of March, 23rd of March. So this is the 2018 release. The Longrow is 60% sherry, 40 bourbon, and the Springbank is all bourbon. All bourbon, baby. So the reason why I'm doing this side by side today, usually I would do this review, and then side by side. I don't want to drag that on just for shits and giggles. The reason why I want side by side today is actually highlight to you the difference between essentially the same distillery. One's a non-peated, well, one's a very, very lightly peated version and one's a heavily peated version. For all intents and purposes, the same whiskey, one is the peated variation. And every year, Springbank will change their bottlings anyway, generally speaking, in terms of proportion of sherry and bourbon. So this year happens to be all bourbon, happened to be all sherry cask. So this happened to be all 60% sherry cask and 40% bourbon. What I'm going to highlight today is actually not just the tasting notes. I mean, that's easy enough to do. What I'm going to highlight is the difference between the two, and show you, is the Springbank for you or is the Longrow for you? Personally, I think they're both for you, but let's see how we go. Let's do the Springbank first. That's very clean. Very clean. Sickly sweet coconut. You can definitely tell that's a bourbon cask right there. And I always find this amazing when it comes to Springbank, because I know Springbank for their dunnage, fusty notes, the damp warehouse smell, the wet wood. But the Springbank 18, this is my second Springbank 18 that I've tried now, and it's a very clean smelling spirit relatively. You can still get that dunnage around the back, that distinct Springbankness, but it's not that prominent in the nose. But I'm getting brown sugar, a light caramel, some toffee and fudge. I'm getting a very light spice, and I'm thinking maybe a white pepper. Slight medicinal note to it. But nothing overtly unusual, or nothing overtly that'll pop out and go, oh, what is that? Nothing like that. So, very pleasant on the nose. Of course, it's Springbank, I love it. Let's try the Longrow 18. See, the Longrow 18 and the Springbank chalk and cheese, and this is pretty typical. Next time you have the same same 18-year-old bottles, side by side them, it's really fascinating. In the Longrow straight away, I'm getting fungal, flinty, damp smell. And funny enough, with the Springbank 12 and 15 bottlings, you get that flinty and dampness. For some reason, the 18, it subsides. I don't know why, I don't know what happens, but the 18 is never as stinky and smelly in a good way as the 12 and 15. But the 18 Longrow, that just, oh, the aroma is just a dirty, funky whiskey. That is dirty. That is as dirty as Prince Andrew. Oh, too soon. I'm getting a little bit of that sherry influence in there, that Christmas cake, that spice, the cinnamon, the nutmeg, the flowery cake taste. A little bit of sulfuricness, a little bit of funk. Actually, I lie, a lot of funk. Gunpowder, smoke. I'm getting peat and smoke. Oh. I mean, if you're side-by-siding straight away, the nose, I mean, I would vote for this as a nose straight away. I mean, this just drowns. The Springbank 18 just drowns in the Longrow 18's complexity of the nose. The nose of the Springbank is just so funky and the Longrow is so funky and dirty. It's just like a damp forest with leaf litter, decomposing leaves, wet wood, firewood, moss in the air. Whilst this one is so clean and so clinical and almost too narrow on the nose. But that is fantastic. That is a joy. I'm getting a little bit of condensed jam in there as well, condensed fruit. I will pick maybe a... Oh, it's a hard one, but... like a sickly sweetness of a strawberry jam. Oh, gorgeous. That, I mean, if I was to give it to you side by side, I'm betting that you would probably vote for this one. Actually, I lie. It depends on your taste, but you know, everyone's different. Let's try the Springbank and see how we go. Oh, by the way, they're both at 46%. They're both at 46%, so equal footing here. And I might put water in the end later, but I don't think you really need to with these two expressions. Sweetness, a little bit of salinity, earthiness. It is still on the palate very clean. It's got a spice to it, a very, very minor heat, but it's still very clean. I mean, I'd struggle to pick that was a Springbank unless I really thought about it. You can smell that it's a Springbank and taste a Springbank. It's got that funky, slightly funky smell to it right in the end of your palate. It's got a bit of leatheriness to it. The wood is not, it's actually a very lightly wooded whiskey. Don't get me wrong, it's still a joy to drink. It's an 18-year-old Springbank, that's a pleasure. And value-wise, they're always really good, and I'll go through that in a bit. It's got a strange perfume, a bit like an incense, like being around a temple in Asia, and you get that incense smell, that kind of floral oiliness smell in the air. It's got a bit of jasmine in it. And right in the end, a hint, a very, very light hint of lemon rind. Very light hint of lemon rind, that oily lemon rind. But it's not overly oily whiskey, but it's a slightly oily finish, medium to long finish, and quite a clean whiskey. Let's try the Longrow 18. Oh, what a pleasure. That is filthy. Oh man, sweetness, not intense, but quite a strong sweetness, followed by smoke, followed by a little sulfuricness, and followed by peat, oily. It lingers in the mouth. The finish is definitely very long. It's got those, I mean, obviously when you taste it, when you smell it, it is apparent that the sherry influence is in there, but not overly overpowering. I think they got the blend right here. I think they got the blend right at 60-40. Oh man, it's got that kind of pong in the back of your nose, and that's the dunnage, the beautiful dunnage, which is weird because why do they have the dunnage smell on this versus this? And it's both 18 years old, probably shared the same or similar warehouses. But this one here, you've got the characteristic of Springbank. The peat's not overpowering. It is not an overly iodine peat. It is a smoky peat, a charcoal or a soot peat that you're getting from this, but definitely an oilier dram and much more complex and robust on the palate. This one here, very easy drinking, a session whiskey. This one here, yeah, I could say this is also a session whiskey, but I'm not going to add water to this. So I wanted to highlight the differences here today, and this is a very clean whiskey that's not too funky for a Springbank anyway. I mean, for a non-Springbank, obviously it's by that standard is a lot dirtier, but for a Springbank, this is quite a clean Springbank, quite a mellow flavor, very palatable, very approachable. This one here is will be a lot more polarizing. It's a lot funkier and dirtier, flinty, sulfuric and sweeter, complex and robust, and a big mouthful. Really chewy, oily whiskey. This one here, it's like just kind of dissipates in the mouth. The finish is long, this is medium. So which one do I like more? Well, look, to me, when it comes to the Springbank distillery, I like that funkiness, that dirtiness of the Springbank, so I will pick the Longrow 18. In saying that, two greats battling it out, there can only be one. And so this is my pick of the day, because it is a much more complex and robust whiskey, and I like that. And it's very oily, and it's very much a Springbank. You can smell it straight away. You can't mistake it. This, you can kind of mistake it, but this, you cannot mistake it. You know it's from that distillery. Cigar pairings. Look, for the Springbank, I would say something quite oily, because this will then help balance that out and it'll complement each other nicely. But then again, I'm all for overwhelming the senses sometimes. So for the Longrow, I'd say, hey, go for an oily cigar as well, because the oiliness of the whiskey, it's not like an Ardbeg or something super heavy like that, where you kind of just get overwhelmed in terms of sensation. This is still, you can still have a relatively oily cigar with this. It's not going to tip you over, and it'll be quite a pleasurable combination. Thank you for joining me today. Hey, what do you like better? 18 Longrow or Springbank? You let me know what you like better. Have you side by sided them before? If you haven't, I challenge you to do it and let me know your thoughts. What do you think? Until next time, make sure you eat, smoke, drink. Cheers.